The question from Senator Loeffler and the other senators is for counsel for the President. As a fact witness who was coordinating with the whistleblower, did Manager Schiff's handling of the impeachment inquiry create material due process issues for the President to have a fair trial?
Mr. Chief Justice, Senators, thank you for that question. And I believe the short answer is yes, it did create a material due process issue. And as I explained the other day in a portion of my argument, there were three major due process violations: the lack of an authorization so that the whole proceeding started in an illegitimate and constitutionally invalid manner. Second, the lack of basic due process protections related to fundamental rights to present evidence, to cross-examine witnesses, present witnesses. And then the final one is that Manager Schiff or his staff had some role in consulting with the whistleblower that remains secret to this day. And all attempts to find out about that, to ask questions about that, were shut down. Manager Schiff has said today that he had no contact with the whistleblower. It was only his staff. But the extent to which there was some consultation there hasn't actually been probed by any questioning. All of the questions that Republican members of the House tried to ask about that were shut down. And any questions, as a result, any questions into determining who the whistleblower was and what his motivations and his bias were also shut down. The Inspector General for the intelligence community noted, we heard that earlier this evening, in his letter to the acting director of the DNI, that the whistleblower there were indicia of political bias because the whistleblower had connections to a presidential candidate of another party. But the testimony from the Inspector General of the intelligence community remains secret. It was in executive session. It hasn't been forwarded from HPSI to the House Judiciary Committee and therefore is not part of the record here. There hasn't been any ability to probe into the relationships between the whistleblower and others who are materially relevant to the issues in this inquiry. If the whistleblower, as is alleged in some public reports, actually did work for then Vice President Biden on Ukraine issues, exactly what was his role, what was his involvement when issues were raised? We know from testimony that questions were raised about the potential conflict of interest that the Vice President then had when his son was sitting on the board of Burisma. Was the alleged whistleblower involved in any of that and in making decisions to not do anything related to that? Did he have some reason to want to put the deep six on any question raising any issue about what went on with the Bidens in Burisma and firing Shokin and withholding $1 billion in loan guarantees and enforcing a very explicit quid pro quo? You won't get this $1 billion until you fire him. We don't know. And because Manager Schiff was guiding this whole process, because he was the chairman in charge of directing the inquiry and directing it away from any of those questions, that creates a real due process defect in the record that has been presented here. So yes, that is a major problem and a major defect in the way the House proceedings occurred that infects this record and means that it is not a record that could be relied upon to reach any conclusion other than an acquittal for the President. Thank you.
Thank you, Counsel.